Good afternoon. This is our 22nd talk. We've covered a lot of ground since we started. I think Keta will just take you through the sutra and then we'll start.
Yes. While the screen comes up. The last sutra, sage Patanjali had said that you will fly over or you will go over certain obstacles. The obstacles will not come in the way, right? And he put "and" at the end of the sutra. In this sutra, he just tells us what are the obstacles that are there which cause disturbance to the chitta, or they sort of cause an obstacle to soul cognition. The sutra is a very long one because it lists down each of these obstacles.
Nine of them.
Each of the 9 obstacles, and it goes like Vyadhi, Styan, Shaumshaya, Pramad, Alasya, Avirti, Bhranti Darshana, Alapta
Bhumikatva,
Anavasthitattvani, Chitta Vikshep,
Chitta Vikshepaha, Te
Antaraya. And Tavariaji, he translates this as the obstacles to soul cognition are bodily disability, mental inertia, wrong questioning, carelessness, laziness, lack of dispassion, erroneous perception, inability to achieve concentration, and failure to hold the meditative attitude or one-pointedness when achieved.
Thank you. So before we dive into the sutra, let's just have a sort of bird's eye glance at it. So we'll just take a simple meaning of the word antaraya, meaning an interruption. So what it would mean is that I'm going on a certain journey, and in the journey there is some kind of interruption. Maybe I have a puncture, or maybe the road is being repaired, right? Now, if I have a puncture, then I have to make a small trip to the tire person to repair the puncture and get air in the tires and all that. So there is an interruption, and in the interruption, I take a different route, a different iron. Of course, in this example which we have taken, it is something which is supporting the original, movement towards consciousness. But it could be something totally different. I may stop on the way and just, enjoy myself at some place on the way instead of reaching there. Now, this interruption which has happened on the way, we will call it as antaraya. Antar being in the middle, in between, and aya means to take a different route. Ayana, to take a different route. We can also take an example of a river which is flowing in the direction of the ocean, and there may be a landslide or something which throws an obstacle in the pathway of the river, and the river, instead of going on its course towards the ocean, changes its course and goes in a different direction. And this is very well explained by Gurdjieff when he talks of the law of octaves. What happens? What is the science behind this change of direction? Why can't we keep moving in the same direction? Now we started in Sutra30, Ishwar Pranidhanad. And we said that is to take our chitta, our attention, towards Ishwar. That is, now we have now come to a state in our journey where our attention is flowing towards the Ishwar inside. The attention is flowing towards the object of yoga, right? And there is a sudden change of direction for the attention. The attention is as if taken and thrown away somewhere else. And this, what can throw away our attention? What can kidnap our attention, abduct our attention, and throw it somewhere else? Patanjali calls as antaraya. Antaraya meaning obstacle. So we ask ourselves a question over here, that we were flowing towards the inner Ishvara. We were going on our journey towards the inner Ishvara. But at some point, we are not able to hold our attention there. Our attention is not being able to be, no, I won't, stuck is not the right word, but to hold our attention there. And he's saying, now, what are the impediments? So he names 9 impediments. He names 9 obstacles. And these obstacles create a gap, an antar. And this antar, if you see this gap, does not allow the continuous flow, nirantar. The continuous flow is something which you would call nirantar. It does not allow the continuous flow, right? And there's a gap or an intermission. Now, if we could go back to Sutra number 14, and this was, of course, Mr. Tavaria's favorite sutra, Sutra 14. Sa tu dirgha kale nairantarye satkar asevitu dhrad bhumi. So now, in this sutra, he's talking about abhyas. What kind of abhyas? What kind of practice? Right? And he's saying, Sa tu dirgha kale, that practice must continue for a long period of time. Right? Nairantarya, with no antar. With no antar. So in Sutra 14, he's saying that your practice is, what practice? Abhyas. Abhyas of what? Chitta vritti nirodha. That abhyas of chitta vritti nirodha must continue for a long period of time. Nairantarya, with no intermission. With no intermission. And satkara sevitu, and he says with the inner bhavana, which we saw in the last sutra before last, tad japastad artha bhavanam, the inner bhavana of having that Ishvara, of becoming, merging into that Ishvara, that inner bhavana, satkara sevitu, satkar bhav se, with the satkar bhav, sevan, means you keep on, what do you call, quenching your thirst, drinking from that inner satkar bhav, which takes you on your journey, that inner worshipping emotion to take you on your journey. So he says, in that sutra, he says, Nairantarye. Now in this sutra, he's telling us what brings about antar, what brings about gap. We, in the best of our, what do you call, effort, in the best of our, what do you call, aim, we want to follow the path without any intermissions, right? We don't want intermissions to come. And we have this inner will that we want to do it, but still intermissions come. And we fall back, and gaps come, and life goes on in this way. So here he's giving us what kind of gaps can come.
ठीक-ठाक दे ला
ठीक-ठाक है ना
ले जाओ लिखते हो
Somebody's video is in between. Audio, sorry. Yeah. And In the translation of that sutra, the words which Tavariaji Sahib has used, when the object to be gained is sufficiently valued, then he says you don't have to make efforts. The efforts happen automatically. Do we value our inner path of yoga? Do we value this rise in consciousness? How much of value do we put upon it? How much are we willing to sacrifice for it? But as our experience tells us, intermissions come, interruptions come. And I remember my days with Tavariaji Sahib, and there was always this urge to reach the stock market on time, and I would start from in the local train from Ghatkopar, and many times I would decide that I would do my exercises and my practices after reaching home in the evening. And in the afternoon, after the stock market got over at 2 o'clock, I would go to meet him. And just by looking at us, he would know that whether we have practiced today or not practiced today. That whether there is antar or it is nairantarya. And if it is valued, then nairantarya comes automatically. If there is satkara sevitu, if there is that value for what we are doing, right, then the practices go on without any intermission. So Patanjali is saying, because of these 9, because of this and this and this, your practices, that inner flow of attention towards the inner Ishvara can be interrupted. And he's going to tell us what these antars are, what these obstacles are. And these obstacles, they work through vrittis. So we saw in the second sutra that, in the fourth or fifth sutra, that these are the vrittis, these are the 5 vrittis. So the obstacle will bring about the vritti, and the vritti will steal our attention from the path. So Patanjali is saying in this sutra, te antaraya, these are the obstacles, these are the intermissions. In this sutra, he's telling us that as long as these obstacles are there, they are going to keep on stealing our attention and deviate us from the path. Now, in the last sutra, we saw tata pratyek chetana adhigama api antaraya abhava cha. So in that sutra, he says that attention took that leap. It went above the antarayas. So there was that moment where there were no intermission, no obstacles. We took the leap over that. And then he puts the word cha, and. And then in this sutra, he says, te antaraya. These are the obstacles. So here he's giving us an indication that you have, for that momentary, that moment, you have leapt above the obstacles, you have had a glimpse of that Ishvara, but you have to come back, and it is a long process of inner self-observation to work with the obstacles. And supposing somebody does not want to come back, he does not want to work, he says, I've already had that glimpse, right? Why should I now work with the obstacles? I know what is at the top of the mountain, right? So he says, I don't want to come back. Then what will happen? Then because that experience is in a different time, right? It is not in the same time as you and I meet. You and I meet in linear time, right? But that experience happens beyond linear time. It happens in a kind of eternal time. Now, if we don't come back and work with the obstacles in linear time, there's a great possibility that they'll get fixed in a higher time, and we'll carry on those obstacles for maybe many more births altogether. But many people who have had this glimpse, have this experience, they don't want to come back and work with the obstacles, right? And so here he is saying that there is that momentary abhava, and there is, for some moment you have a glimpse of that Ishvara because there are no obstacles. And then he says, and these are the obstacles. Now we must look at the word abhava. I explained it last time. I'm going to explain it again. Bhava is the prerak of bhav, is the what you call encouraging emotion for bhav. Bhav to be, something has manifested. Bhav to be, it has manifested that I have got rid of the obstacles. But abhava cha means that bhav, bhava, it does not mean I have got rid of the obstacles. It means this momentary glimpse should serve as an encouragement, should provoke me to come back and start working with the obstacles. And then from bhava, it becomes bhu. I come to a state where I have manifested no obstacles. I'm free of the obstacles. And this requires a lot of work upon self, a lot of hard work upon self. It can take many years. And that is why many times I say that the experience of truth is one thing, but the dissolution of the ego is something totally different. Many people in a moment, they have an experience of truth, but the ego does not dissolve. And then the ego takes possession of that truth. And we can see this happening in so many places, right? So we have to come back and we have to work with the obstacles. So he's using the word abhavacha, the encouragement to bhu, to manifest that state where we are free of obstacles. So this leaping over, this glimpse of that state of no obstacles, it becomes a provocation, it becomes an encouragement. It tells us now, go back and work with the obstacles, practice self-observation over a long period of time, be free of the obstacles, and then you move ahead. Don't move ahead till then. So now here again, I remember the talks with Tavariaji Sahib on the Yogasutras, and he says that there are two kinds of obstacles. One is the personal obstacles, which Patanjali explains in this sutra. And one are the universal or general obstacles, which Patanjali calls as kleshas, which will come in the second chapter, right? So there are two kinds of obstacles. Now, the general, the five kleshas, the general, they are common to the whole human race. They are the weaknesses of the human race. They are universal obstacles. Whilst these nine, someone may have one, someone may not have one, someone may have another, someone may have one or two, someone may have one in more intensity, one in less intensity. So these nine obstacles are personal obstacles. Personal obstacles. So the general obstacles Patanjali calls as klesha, and the personal obstacles he calls as antaraya, right? So we can say that all human beings have common weaknesses, say avidya, have common weaknesses. And I may have one little more than you or little less than you in some weakness, but it still shows that we have common weaknesses, and those will come in the next chapter. But I may have a personal weakness, like we'll take the first one, bodily disability. I may have some problem with my body, which you may not have, right? But you may be lazy and I may not be lazy, etc. So these are individual weaknesses and we have to work with them in that way. So when we look at the general weaknesses, that is, which will come in the second chapter, one common factor which starts with is avidya, the covering of the truth, the veil over the truth. And it is these weaknesses these general weaknesses which are the veil over the truth. He first puts our personal weaknesses. We work with our personal weaknesses, and then we get the capacity to work with the general weaknesses. A time will come in our journey when we will be working with both together, the understanding of both together. So all of us have weaknesses in our individual structure, and all of us have weaknesses as human beings. In another way we can say this is that man is a part of nature. Man is a part of nature. And within man is the potentiality to rise above nature, to realize something divine which is above nature. But this depends on each man's individual choice. Nature does not help him to rise above nature. Nature keeps him in nature, right? But it is each person's individual choice whether he wants to give water to that seed lying within him to rise above nature, to realize his divine nature. Now, man also has another choice, and that is to fall below nature. He can go back to the animal, right? That doesn't mean his form will change, right? But he can live like an animal. He can live in animalism. That is, he has chosen a path to go below nature. Instead of making that effort to rise above nature, he's chosen a path to fall instead. Now, one of the things we can say over here is that as a part of nature, all of humanity as a part of nature suffers. Now, suffering can lead us to a state above nature, or suffering can throw us into a state below nature. I may be suffering physically. I may be suffering emotionally. Maybe my girlfriend has left me or something, right? I may be suffering mentally. Right? All these sufferings I have. Now I can rise above these sufferings and move to a state where I can observe these sufferings from far away. Or I can take a glass of whiskey and come to a state where I don't feel the sufferings. Then I've gone below nature. Below nature. So I am suffering. All of humanity is suffering. So I have two choices over here. One is to awaken the seed of consciousness and rise above the suffering, understand what is suffering, come to a state where we are free of suffering, or I can forget the suffering by drinking a glass of whiskey. I just forget the suffering, but then I fall below nature, right? But you know, people who drink are still maybe little gentle people, but some people, they fall into violence and animalism, which is much below nature. So Tavariaji Sahib says that unless this individual structure where all these weaknesses are lying, unless that structure changes, we cannot progress on the path, we cannot rise higher in consciousness. Now we can explain the same way in Gurdjieffian terms. As a part of nature, Gurdjieff says that man is under 48 laws. If man falls below nature, and Gurdjieff here gives very specific emphasis on negative emotions, anger, jealousy, etc. That when we fall into negative emotions, we are no longer in nature 48 laws, we have gone below nature into 96 laws. So Gurdjieff says man is subject to 48 laws. And when he says we've gone into 96 laws, we can see the parallel in the Mahabharata, 100 Kauravas, right? And Gurdjieff says that when we make an effort to rise above nature, then we go from 48 to 24 laws. In Sanskrit, we have three words: Prakruti, Vikruti, Sanskriti. In nature, Prakruti. fall below nature, Vikruti, rise above nature, Sanskruti, right? So we have these three words. So with this background, now here Patanjali is saying that what do these 9 kleshas bring about? They bring about something called chitta vikshepa. They bring about something called chitta vikshepa. That is, our attention which was flowing towards Ishvara, the inner flowing inwards towards Ishvara, these 9, they distract that attention. Vikshepa, V means apart, and ship to throw. They throw the attention out of that flowing into some other, what do you call, direction. And so it is no longer flowing towards Ishvara. So they take that chitta and throw it out of that flowing towards Ishvara. And that is why he calls it as these 9 bring about something called chitta vikshepa, intervals in the flow of attention. Now the first one is something which he calls as vyadhi, which has normally been taken as a disease or a bodily disability, right? I must at the outset say something over here, that the body is a good vehicle to use to rise in consciousness. But that does not mean it is the vehicle. You can rise in consciousness even with a very sick body. And a person with a healthy body may not make any effort to rise in consciousness. So I may be very, very sick and ill in total bodily disability, and still I can be in a higher state of consciousness. And I can be very healthy, going to the gym, practicing all the exercises, and still not make any effort towards consciousness. So a healthy body is what you call help for consciousness, but consciousness is not dependent upon a healthy body. Yeah. Even a sick person can be completely conscious. So the first, what he calls is vyadhi, V-A-dha, dha to put down, right? A from all sides, and V in a specific way, in a vishesh way, or in an exceptional way. In an exceptional way, I am put down from all sides. Now, thank you. When I am ill, I'm put down from all sides. All sides means mentally, physically. Of course, I'm ill physically. So physically, mentally, emotionally, right? Even the moving center, I won't have the desire to go traveling anywhere. I like to lie in bed. So from all sides, when I am put down, that is called as vyadhi, V-A-dha, right? In an exceptional way, vishesh, in an exceptional way. But it is mainly used for bodily disability, disease, a mental ailment. It means to be seized by disease, to be captured by disease. That is from all sides, intellectual, emotional, from our sensitivity, etc. Of course, there's a big loss of sensitivity. So if we just take a simple thing that I have a problem with my body, say I've been to the dentist and he's removed a tooth. So the next whole day, my tongue will keep on going to that empty space where the tooth was removed. Similarly, what Patanjali is saying is that if there is a disability in the body, it will keep on stealing my attention. My attention will keep going over there. and my attention will not be able to flow to that Ishwar inside. And this is with everything: ill health of the body, of the mind, of the emotions, mental health, psychic health, etc. And because my attention keeps going to my disease, there is a kind of fragmentation of attention. And Gurdjieff puts a lot of emphasis on fragmentation of attention, right? And I don't have that powerful attention to continue that flow towards Ishvara. Now, we'll look at three words over here: Adi, Vyadhi, and Upadhi. Adi is disease, physical ailment. It could be a mental condition also. And Adi, Di means to be grounded, to put down, right? So I've been totally grounded by a physical ailment. Vyadhi is Vishesh Adi, a specific Adi, what do you call, exceptional Adi, which has put me down, has grounded me. And then there is Upadhi, tension in the mind. I have so many responsibilities. How do you even expect me to even walk on the spiritual path? I still have to get my daughter married, and I still have to do this, and I still have to do that. So many upadhis I have in life, right? And I'm carrying all these upadhis, and these upadhis are fragmenting my attention completely. My attention is so weak, it has no strength to flow inwards. It's not possible, right? So there is upadhi, is a holding of tension. And maybe there is a state where there is no adi, vyadhi, or upadhi, then that is the state of samadhi, right? So then we are in a state of samadhi. Now, in anyone's life, the encountering of any obstacle, I will not call it as a happy condition. It's not a happy event. That is, I won't say that I've got a physical disease or a mental disease and we should take it as a happy event or something of that sort. But there is something to be learned from every obstacle. That is, we can use the obstacle, the vyadhi, as a stepping stone for our progress. That is, the vyadhi has come, the suffering has come. Now, do we want to rise above it or do we want to fall? If we have fallen, it has stolen our attention. If we have held our attention, even in the vyadhi, then we will rise above the vyadhi. Now, what happens in an illness? When we fall ill, our instinctive center or the instinctive mechanism of the body, it cuts off energy from other sources and redirects that energy for healing of the body. Healing of the body. So, when I am ill, very ill, the instinctive center will cut energy from my intellectual center and it will use that energy for healing of the body, right? So if I'm very ill and I say I want to study the Gita in my illness, it would not be possible because the instinctive center has cut off energy from the intellectual center and using it for healing the body. Similarly with the feeling center, the emotions, right? So I may be a very emotional person. I'm very bothered about whether everybody has had a proper meal today, whether everybody is happy with what they ate, etc., etc. And everything is clean in the home and this and comfortable and etc. I'm very bothered about all that. And I spend my day looking after all that, looking behind all. But I'm suddenly ill. Now somebody has eaten or not eaten. right? The instinctive center is going to cut the energy to the emotional center. And suddenly I'm in this state where I'm really not bothered. I can't be bothered whether somebody has eaten or not eaten, etc. So it'll cut energy to the emotional center. It cuts energy to the other activities of its own instinctive center. So if I'm very ill and my friend comes, oh, this new restaurant is open and it's got excellent food and right, and why don't we go? But I'm not in the mood to eat anything. I'm not in the mood to taste anything new, right? It has cut energy to the instinctive center. It cuts energy to the moving center. I'm not in the mood to travel anywhere, take a trip to Kashmir or something, right? So when we are ill, the instinctive center sort of cuts energy from all the other centers and uses that energy for healing the body. This, now, if we look at this positively, I mean, we are already ill. I'm not saying that you become ill to experience this, right? But we are already ill. We already have some body problem. Now, can we look at this from another angle? Can we, can you see that when we are ill, we are in a state of automatic detachment, automatic renunciation? Now, supposing I'm a person who is very, what do you call, identified that everything should be perfect. Have you arranged the table perfectly? Have you put the spoons and forks perfectly? The knife has to be on the right side, the fork on the left side, and the napkin arranged in this way, right? And I spend my whole day making things perfect. All my attention goes in making things perfect. Now, if I was to work upon this attitude of mine, if I was to, what do you call, observe this attitude of mine, to be free of this attitude that I want everything perfect, it may take a few years, it may take a long time of self-observation. But here I'm suddenly ill, I'm not bothered about who has put the spoon where, whether somebody has arranged the napkin properly or not. There's that sudden renunciation. Now, can I make use of that sudden renunciation? Similarly, in our relationships, now, I may be very attached to my daughter. Has she come home on time? Did she get home at night? Right? But suddenly I'm ill, then I won't bother, you know, that suddenly there's a break. Now to be detached from the people we love is a very difficult phase of self-observation. It takes a long time to come to a state where there is detachment with love. We don't get rid of the love. We increase the love, but we be free of the detachment. It takes a long, long time to come to that state. But here, when we are ill, we are suddenly in a state of detachment. I'm not really bothered whether my son did his homework or not did his homework, etc. Some people, they like to talk the whole day. They always need somebody to talk to, and they are always wasting energy in unnecessary talking. And it has become so habitual, right? And now suddenly I fall ill. And suddenly the mouth closes. There is no talking at all. I'm suddenly free of that habit of talking all the time. Many of us, we, what do you call, love scandal. We love to read about scandal, which actor is having an affair with which actress, etc., etc. And we are here ill, lying in our bed. And if somebody says, do you know this new scandal has come up, this actor with this actress? And we say, we are not bothered about that. So all these habits of ours, which have accumulated momentum over the years, suddenly in a state of bodily disability, the state of illness, they all sort of fall away. And if we make right use of that illness, because once we are healed and back, they're all going to come back again. So if we make a right use of that vairagya which has happened for that small amount of time, then the illness can be used positively and we can use the obstacle, we step on the obstacle, use it as a stepping stone to a higher state of consciousness. I'll talk about one more example over here, is something which I have personally seen with someone. Supposing someone is diagnosed with cancer and the doctors say that you have only 3 months to live, right? And that person has a spiritual aim in his or her life. It was in her life when I saw this person. But till then, she was not making such intense efforts. It wasn't nairantarya. It wasn't without intermission. Now suddenly she knows that life is these 3 months, and after 3 months it's going to end. And that brings a sudden intensity to her aim, to her efforts. Supposing we say that she had an aim that when she dies, she wants to be breathing in rhythm all 24 hours. At the moment of death, when death comes to capture her, she must be breathing in rhythm. This was the small aim which she had. Now she knows she has only 3 months, so she is going to make such an intense effort which we may not make in a whole lifetime. Can you see? Right? Now she has used that obstacle as a stepping stone. And she did this. Right? And many times a person can live more in 3 months than we live in a whole lifetime. I always remember Ramdulare Bapu over here. जीवन को उम्र से भर देने की बजाय उम्र को जीवन से भर दो. Right? He used to say. And that person, when in those 3 months, would not allow any distraction. Supposing a very close person's wedding would come, he'd say, no, I'm not coming for the wedding. I want to practice. Right? Or if there are guests in the home, he would not say, sit and gossip with the guests. He'll say, I have to go and practice. And you see, that sudden renunciation of everything will be brought about that I have only these 3 months to live. He wouldn't bother to go to a restaurant, of course. And in those 3 months, she came to a state of one-pointed attention, which is so difficult, such a high state in Patanjali, of one-pointed attention. And she was able to achieve that through this intense practice because she had only 3 months to live. So the obstacle which Patanjali is talking about, Vyadhi, that is, which is there to take us down, just by looking at it in a different way, we can use it as a stepping stone to go somewhere higher. I want to talk a little bit about suffering over here. Whenever we are suffering, physical, emotional, mental, whatever we do moves from a lower time to a higher time. It moves from a linear time into an eternal time. In the sense that I've fallen ill and I'm complaining all the time, my body is paining and I've got a headache and I've got fever and I had so much work in the office and I can't do that and I can't do this, right? So I'm in this state of complaining all the time, right? And what I don't realize that what I do when I'm suffering moves from a lower time into a higher time. So this what do you call this pattern, this sanskar of complaining all the time is now going to be with me for a few lifetimes because I've practiced that when suffering. Mechanically, it has been happening when I'm suffering. So whatever I do when I'm suffering, that gets fixed. It gets fixed in some other time. Now, supposing I am in a state of suffering, disease as we call it, and I use that state, I use it with will, that I want to meditate in this state. I want to bring yoga, chitta, vritti, nirodha. I want to practice towards one-pointed attention. I want to practice the rhythmic breathing. Then in that 1 week in which I was ill, what I have practiced may and achieved in that 1 week, I may not achieve by years of ordinary practice. Because in suffering, it takes that practice from a lower time to a higher time. It becomes a sanskar inside. It becomes a new habit inside. So suffering is the key to fix consciousness, right? Nothing can disturb that consciousness, right? Suffering is the key. And the prime example we have is that of Jesus Christ, where he chose suffering so that whatever consciousness he had achieved in his lifetime, that suffering would be fixed forever. In that intense suffering, that consciousness would have been fixed forever. And he chose to go on the cross. And when we read what happened, you see, when he was standing with his disciples and he hears the footfalls of the soldiers coming to arrest him. The soldiers could not be seen, just the footfalls could be heard. And he says, before the soldiers come to arrest me and take me to the jail, let me go to meet them, let me go to welcome them. And he goes to welcome them. So there we have a very prime example of where he used suffering to fix the highest state of consciousness, to make it permanent in himself. So vyadhi, I mean bodily disability, it can be used in both ways, right? Either we fall from it, we complain and become negative, then all that complaining and negative will be with us for a very long journey, or we can rise above it. Yeah. Styan is translated as mental inertia. Now, we'll go into the next three. Styan, Pramad, Alasya. Next three. And just as a general term, we will say Styan, mental inertia, or we can in a different way say laziness of the thinking, laziness of the mind, mental inertia. Pramad works with self-love, mad. So mad is love of the emotional center. That is what you call laziness of the emotional center. That is the next one. And the one after that, alasya, is laziness of the physical center, the physical body. This is just in a general way. We'll go deeper into the words and see what they mean. But in a general way, we can translate that Patanjali is talking about inertia in the mind, inertia in the heart, inertia in the body, in three different words. The definition of Styan, Shabda Sangatayoho, that is either in words or either in tone, right? Everything is collected into a heap. Everything is collected into one mass. Right? So now, if I'm just holding one thought, and everything is revolving around that one thought, why did this happen to me, and what have I done wrong, and God is not happy with me, and they say I have no proper destiny in life, then it becomes that thought collects into one mass. We say the planets were built from asteroids. One asteroid, what do you call, banged with another asteroid and another asteroid, and they all collected into one mass and a planet was made. Similarly, all these thoughts keep on banging with each other and they collect into one mass, and the gravity is such that I'm in mental inertia, I can't do anything. Right? I just can't do anything. Now, we can take this in another way. And sometimes this is very apparent, very, very apparent, in the sense that some people, they talk so fast that you can't make any clarity out of what they are talking. You can't make, so they're just heaping the words upon you, right? And the heaping, the collect together those words, and they don't mean anything, they don't bring any clarity, right? So sabda sangat, shabda, to speak, the word, sangat. So just as the asteroids were banging with each other, the words are repeated so fast that they bang with each other. And in the end, we feel he has thrown a heap of words on to us, but we really don't know what he said. Some people's tone, they speak in such a high-pitched tone, as if it's coming from some deep inner anguish, some deep inner, so the reverberations, and because of the tone, we don't understand anything. They've just heaped everything upon us, just collected everything upon us. So it is as if all the attention has been fragmented into different pieces and they've just been brought together. Sanghata, Shabda Sanghata Yoho. Sanghat means to bring together, right? But Sanghat is positive and Sanghat is negative. This is negative singing. So I may be talking in a what we call tragic tone. Some people, whenever they talk, it's always in a tragic tone. And they heap all their difficulties together. They heap all their pain together. And of course, if you don't listen to their difficulties and if you don't listen to the pain and suffering through which they are going, they feel so offended and so hurt. You have to listen to it. So they bring out all their pain in a heap. They heap it all together. There's a repetitive sad tone. There's a repetitive sad tone about it. Now, inertia. So science has an experiment for inertia where they say temperature in two kettles, the water is at different temperature. One is very hot and one it is quite cold. And the two kettles are connected to each other. Now, the water will get exchanged between the two kettles till both come to the same temperature. After the same temperature, there is no exchange. The science says now it has reached a state of inertia. It has reached a state of inertia. There is no exchange. When there is no exchange between us and life, when there is no exchange between us and another person, when there's no exchange between us and our own bodies, our own self, we are in a state of inertia. The temperature, everything outside and inside, all the temperatures have come to the same temperature. There's no movement over there. You want to explain this a little more? Please go ahead. Yeah.
So maybe let's look at one more example of inertia from science. Physics is full of examples of inertia. And Newton has come up with multiple laws. And the first law of motion that he came up with, that is actually called the law of inertia. And what this law says is that if an object is in inertia, and it can either be at rest or it can be moving at a constant velocity in one direction. So if an object is in inertia, it will continue to do so. It will continue to be at rest or move in the same direction unless worked upon by an external force. Now, for our study here, right, we can say that this individual, this heap of pain or this thickened sanskar, right, has become so deep in him that he's reached such a state that no internal effort will change his direction or will make him move from that place. He'll only need an external help. And the thing is that the larger the inertia, right, the larger this heap of pain that he's got, the larger the external force is.
Sometimes the guru has to take a very, angry and dreadful form to work on certain students. What we call in Hindi, lato ka bhoot baaton se nahi bhagta, right? Because the student reaches a state of inertia, and it happens with everyone. I mean, you practice and then you suddenly reach a plateau as if you feel nothing is happening in that plateau. I mean, you're doing the practices and you're just doing them, in boredom or something of that sort. And you need a push from outside. And it is that time when the guru realizes that the student has reached a, what do you call, plane of inertia, and he gives a push. And sometimes that push can be a very hard push. It can be sometimes he hurts the disciple so deep that from the next day he starts making the effort again. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
That's the
Right. Okay. So that external force, this external force, Gurdjieff, of course, in the law of octaves calls as shock. So styan means to be collected into a mass, to thicken into a mass, such a mass that the gravity of the mass, the heaviness of the mass, the heaviness of all the upadhis, the problems which I'm loaded with, we cannot even think about moving towards Ishwar. There is no desire to move towards Ishwar. And this brings about procrastination, right? I'll say, I want to do it, I want to make the effort, but I'll do it tomorrow. Now, we don't understand, when we study ourselves, we haven't practiced self-observation. We will see that an hour is a repetition of minutes. A day is a repetition of hours. A week is a repetition of days. A month is a repetition of weeks. And a year is a repetition of months. If I have not done my practice in this hour, I'm not going to do it in this day. I'm not going to do it in this week. I'm not going to do it in this month. I'm not going to do it in this year. Styan, I'm putting it off till tomorrow, and that tomorrow will never come. Right? And that is why it is so important to remember one line all the time. There is no time like now. When do you want to do it? Right now. There is no time like now. Do it now. Start now. Because once now goes into tomorrow, then tomorrow will never come. And sometimes this styan, this pulling down, this force of gravity makes a person so thick-skinned that he is not open to any kind of criticism, not open to any kind of suggestion, right? And all this is a result of mental inertia. And the power, the potency of attention keeps fragmented because he's daydreaming and brooding all the time in that inertia. And that is, he's leaking his attention, wasting his attention in daydreaming and brooding. The power of his attention is getting reduced all the time. So I remember Tavariaji Sahib used to call this styan as having no desire to progress on the path. He used to call it as having no desire to progress on the path. Now, there are two kinds of desires, right? There is the desire to involve. I want to go and have a good time with my friends today, eat, have a glass of wine, etc., and a good dinner. So it is a desire to enjoy life, but I am definitely involving. That desire, a continuous desire to involve, go lower and lower, is in Sanskrit we call it as trushna. Trushna. It is, I'm being called in by gravity, I'm being pulled by gravity lower and lower. And there is a desire, and that is a desire to gratify the senses all the time. And there is a desire to evolve, go higher, right? And that is called as abhipsa. I want to go towards something higher. So styan is the absence of the desire to evolve. You may still have the desire to evolve. If a person is in mental inertia, somebody may come and invite him for a movie, and if he gets enough excited, he's going to go for the movie, right? And it also means absence of energy needed to evolve, because all that energy is being wasted in daydreaming and brooding. In Gujarati, you meet a lot of people and they have one standard beautiful line, which I really love. And they say, "Man to ghanu che, pan thatu nathi amarathi." मुझे मुझे भीतर से इच्छा बहुत है लेकिन होता नहीं है मुझसे मन तो घणું છે પણ થાતું નથી મારાથી અને in my mind I say કોણ રોકે છે, who's stopping you? But so Patanjali comes and he says antra is stopping, styan is stopping, mental inertia is stopping over here. This is the absence of the will to rise. Now, in the sutra before last, we saw tad japasta tad artha bhavana. And the artha, that object of Ishwara, the artha, if it is properly valued, if that bhavanam is there, then we are going to make that efforts. What is lacking in mental inertia, there is no value of the object for which we want to make progress. Now, in all of us, there is a deeply embedded, what do you call sanskar or a pattern, that we always look for the path of least resistance. If somebody invites us out, we'll say, does the room have an attached toilet? Is it comfortable? Does it have an air conditioner, etc., etc.? We will always look for personal comfort, for personal this thing. And if we are going to go for dinner, will those people treat me well where we go for dinner, etc. So this inner attitude has to be observed over a long period of time, because it is that attitude which does not allow us to change. It is that attitude which holds us in one place all the time. And of course, the Gurdjieff says that the soul is surrounded by essence, and this essence is, in nature, it is basically lazy. In nature, this essence is wild like an animal. It has to be trained, it has to be awakened, that essence. And so we can understand what Patanjali is saying by the word styan. So we saw two of them, vyadi, styan. Let us see one more today. Sanshaya. Sanshaya. The next obstacle is sanshaya, doubt, suspicion. What has Tavariaji Sahib taken?
Sanshaya, Tavariaji Sahib has
the third one.
Wrong questioning.
Wrong questioning. Wrong questioning. I love this wrong questioning. I really love this wrong questioning. And you know, for years I used to travel everywhere and teach people the exercises and hold meetings, and sometimes there would be 6 to 7 meetings in a day. And people would come and they would ask questions. What do we get by doing these exercises? Has this helped anyone before us? Right? Is there any proof? Have you recorded any proof in any medical journal? Etc. And I said, do it for 6 months. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. My guru has told me all the time. He said, no, you please show us some record where. So people love to, have wrong questioning, and in the end, they don't do anything. They question their whole lives. Right? And of course, in the Gujaratis have one more beautiful this thing of questioning, when the husband and wife come together and you ask the wife, why aren't you doing the exercises? Tamara bhai ne jo ne, you look at your brother. In 10 years, he has been doing exercises. Nothing has changed. Right? So they have this wrong questioning. Wrong questioning. A beautiful way of translating this, I would say. Anyway, sanshaya, doubt, suspicion, dreaming, a kind of negative imagination. It comes from the root shi. Shi means to lie down. Lie down, to go to sleep in imagination. That is, you're not just lie down, but you're dreaming also, you're thinking also all the time. And suspicion leads to something called negative imagination. We must talk about this a little. You have written something over here. You want to talk about it? Right? Then I'll go ahead.
And there are plenty of examples of negative imagination, right? That abounds in our life. And what do we mean by negative imagination? So first is imagination, which is forming new ideas or images or concepts of things that are not present to the senses.
We'll call that as directed imagination.
Directed imagination. That's there, right? Because imagination can either be positive or negative, right? But in most
all the discoveries of science,
all the discoveries of science are positive imagination. Now, in most of our common cases, it is negative imagination. So we always imagine something that is negative. Let's take an example, right? Say we feel some momentary discomfort in our chest, and we automatically imagine the worst case scenario that we'll be having a heart attack shortly. Similar thoughts come to us when we read the health column of a newspaper, which gives the symptoms of specific diseases. We think that we have all the diseases after reading. And it's not just health, it can also be there in work. If you've done a minor mistake, we often assume that we'll get scolded, fired, the mistake will get spotted, while in most cases, the mistake is overlooked. So the last point is that why does our imagination have this tendency to be negative, right? Why does it not have a tendency to be positive, and why does it have a tendency to be negative? And the answer to this is because our body and our mind is an outcome of evolution. And when the forefathers of our body were in the jungle and they heard some movement in the grass, it was better for them to assume that it is a tiger and run rather than assume it's just a gust of wind and stay there. Right? So from that evolution, we have inherited this negative sanskar in our imagination.
Thank you. Now, we'll just look at two words before going into this word sanshay. One is sanshay and one is sandeha. We translate both as doubt, but we'll have to just, ponder a little bit upon the subtle difference between the two, right? So both we translate as doubt. Now, sanshay comes from the root shi, like we said, to lie down, to repose, and to be in imagination. So in sanshay, there is imagination. There is a truth, but through imagination, we are doubting the truth. Because of imagination, we are doubting the truth. Can you understand? Now, in Sandeh does not come from this same root. It comes from the root di. Di means to anoint. Lepu, what we call in Gujarati, to anoint. That is, the soul has been anointed with the body. Right? Or when somebody dies, the body is anointed before a burial. Right? The Egyptian mummies were anointed. Right? So, anoint means to put on one more layer, body on the soul, body, personality, false personality. We put on layers and layers to anoint the soul with so many bodies, right? So both have different meanings, even though we may use them interchangeably. So sanshay is that we are not seeing the truth because of negative imagination, and because we are identified sleep somewhere, we have lied down somewhere, whilst Sandeha means that truth we have anointed with something. Also, that could be from our imagination, but we have done some leopard on it. We have anointed with something. I hope I'm able to come across over here. So there's a slight difference between these two words, sanshay and sandeha. So dreaming in that sense, dreaming in the sense of the doubting, to lie down, sanshay, to lie down and to dream. Why did he do this? What was his motive behind doing this? Will it be successful? Will it not be successful? Now, in astrology and numerology, we have what you call the house called Gemini, Mithun Rashi. And Mithun Rashi is the Gemini twins. So whenever we see that the moon is in Gemini or the Lagna is in Gemini, we say this guy is an indecisive guy. It takes a long time because he's always going from here, oscillating between two. and or if you are born on the, what do you call, on the date 8, then you're always oscillating between two circles in life. You want to do this, you want to do that also. I mean, this is just a general term, just to give. So here, Sanshay, because of imagination, it could be this, it could be that. What would he mean? What did he not mean? What did he hide? His face showed something. Did he mean something else, etc., etc.? There is a state of indecisiveness. There is a state of indecision. Whilst in Sunday, because of anointing, putting layers on that, there is a state of doubt. There is a state of doubt. And both these have a slight difference in between them. So this brings about a kind of indecisiveness, a kind of hesitation, a kind of suspicion. And things are not clear because we are dreaming this all the time. All these thoughts are coming within us. Why did he do this, etc. The mind is oscillating between different possibilities, we can say. Right? Now, and this is not just true of life, right? It is true of us walking on the path also, because today the market is flooded with spiritual teachers. Yeah? And all of them are giving lectures and talks and all kinds of things. And we are always oscillating from here to here to here to here. And I remember Ram Dulare Bapu's words, "Main chala to khub pahuncha kahin bhi nahi, yaani chale hi nahi." Right? So we are always oscillating from here to here. And because of this oscillating, we always have a distorted view of the reality in front of us. So there is a kind of distorted view of the reality. It leads to this wrong questioning. This distorted view leads to this wrong questioning. And this is a big infection. It is like a virus we have taken from life. Right? And we live in a kind of distrust. We live in a kind of wariness. A feeling that something is not true, or something else is possible. And it becomes very difficult to come to a decision. Now, supposing a person is to get married, I may explain to him all the benefits of getting married. So he knows everything. There is no doubt. There is no sandeh. There is no doubt about getting married. But still he cannot come to a decision because he's oscillating between so many possibilities. And this negative imagination can sometimes be so spellbinding, it grips us so hard that we forget everything else. And many times, this is because one of our weaknesses is suggestibility, right? Somebody comes and puts something in our ear, suggests something to us, and we take it for as real. We take it for, supposing I'm new in college and I'm in love with a girl, and somebody comes and tells me, I saw this girl going around with that guy, you know? And then we take it as real, something real. And we are such victims of suggestibility. And instead of looking at her through the eyes of love, which I was looking at her just a moment ago, now I'm looking at her through the eyes of suspicion. Everything changes in that moment. And this is the basic quality of our thinking. We are suggestible people. Another place where one is suspicion, where which is an outcome of negative imagination, suspicion, and try to understand. Suspicion is one of the worst of negative emotions, if not the worst of negative emotions. It is the biggest jail in which we can be. Supposing I have spent 3-4 years with someone I love, right? And they've been such beautiful years. And then I read something in her, what do you call it, somebody's text message, which, you know, today husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend reading each other's what you call WhatsApp messages, right? And suddenly there is a suspicion within me. Then, that suspicion spoils all those 4 good years also. The memory of those 4 good years. It is like I take 1 drop of curd and put it in the milk, all the milk becomes curd. I have taken 1 drop of suspicion, put it in those 4 good years, and they become curd. Right? So suspicion is a very, very dangerous place to be in. Very dangerous place. And it means we are not accepting the other person as a person. We are taking the other person as a possession. And it is like a raping of humanity, mental raping of humanity, when you take the other person as a possession. So suspicion leads to negative imagination, and then we bring anointing. We do leper, anointing over there. Her hand was on his shoulder. Definitely there must be something going on. So the fact was her hand was on the shoulder, but now I start anointing it with so many other possibilities. She must have done this and she must have that. And she was late yesterday. Definitely she was over there, etc., etc. And the whole beautiful milk becomes curd. Everything, our whole life gets ruined through suspicion. And suspicion can lead one to God knows what, right? So it's a form of negative imagination. Another form of negative imagination is worrying. And we love to worry. And when we go into self-observation, we see inside, there's a whole group of eyes. It's like a big political party inside who love to worry. They love to worry. And when we don't have anything to worry about, from somewhere they can get something for us to worry about. There are such clever eyes within us. And they try to hold our attention, that seduce our attention into worrying all the time. And when we go into the root of the word worry, it means to wring. That is when you take your clothes out of the washing and then you wring the water out of your clothes. When you are mentally, physically wringed like this with all kinds of problems, you're in a state of worrying. And when we are in a state of worry, our gestures change, the moving center changes, the hands, the gestures change, what expressions on the face change, and it could be to biting of lips, to biting of the fingernails, twisting of the hands. And we don't do these things when we are happy people, right? So in a state of worry, we are being psychologically torn and twisted completely. And he says Sanshay. Sanshay is normally translated as doubt, but it means to lie down. Lie down does not mean to physically lie down, but to go into a state of identification, hypnosis with what excessive about it, and to go round and round in that. That is a state of Sanshay, right? And we have to look at it, observe it, and be free of it. It's okay? Shall we take one more, or would you like to stop? Can we take one more?
Yes, Rajen bhai, we can take one more.
We take one more?
Yeah.
So the next one is Pramad. Pra means to go forward. Mad means self-love, intoxication, ego, where the ego is moving forward. Napoleon came for marching with 100,000 men. And so the ego is moving forward. That is, mad means to be intoxicated. To be intoxicated. We're intoxicated with what a good person am I. Intoxicated with self-love. Pramad. So it is a weakness of the emotional center. Till what we saw in Styan was a weakness of the mental center, the laziness of the mental center, the laziness of the emotional center. Now, there are 2-3 things about this. I think I may have to divide this one between this and next time. The people who are very have a lot of self-love, very deep into self-love. intoxicated by love of themselves. One of the byproducts of that is that they may be very careless people. So, if you go to those people and you praise them and you say what a good person you are, then they may be careless with their money, they may be careless with their things and just give you something, right? So that is one thing. But they are also very intelligent. They can't see their own faults, but they are experts at seeing other people's faults. And when you want to have an X-ray or a psychological X-ray or a psychic X-ray, always go to a person who is very, identified with his ego, what a good, and he'll tell you all your faults out, so you have a good, what you call, medical reading without spending any money on it. Right? And in the Mahabharata, we have this character called, Shailya. Beautiful character. And he was the mama of Nakul and Sahdev. And Shailya means a spear. Means when I speak, I use such words that they go through and through you like a spear. Shailya. And a very intelligent person who can see our faults and read our faults, when they tell us our faults, it just goes through and through us. It's as if a spear going through and through us. And these people, like we said, they are very prone to procrastination. They love it when people praise them. So Duryodhan came in the way to praise Shailya, and instead of going and supporting his nephews, he went and supported Duryodhan, right? Because he was a victim of praise. Yudhishthir was very intelligent. And he knew that the other quality of this mama is that he's very sharp, very intelligent. So he went to his mama. He says, okay, mama, you have gone on the side of the enemy. You are going to support them in the war. It's okay with us. Doesn't matter. But at one point in the war, you are going to be Karna's charioteer. And at that time, keep on throwing spears, keep on throwing arrows of what you call insults at Karna, so that his break his self-confidence. And this is exactly what Shailya did in the Mahabharata. So we have this character of self-love in the Mahabharata, Shailya, beautiful character. So Pramad, when Mad keeps on going forward, pra to go forward. And this self-intoxication, it takes a long time to be observed. We must separate from it and observe it over a long period of time. We can take certain what we call symptoms, right? The first being it hates to be laughed at, that it hates it if anybody insults it. It hates it if anybody criticizes it. So whenever somebody criticizes us and we feel hurt, whenever we see two people laughing in the corner and we feel definitely they're laughing at us, right? And we feel hurt, right? Then look at where we are feeling hurt. That is where all our self-love, our egoistic eyes lie. We have to observe that over a long period of time. So it hates being insulted. It cannot laugh at itself. It will always laugh at the expense of other people, right? It likes every event to reflect upon it. So supposing a person who is pramad, in self-love, he's standing with a group of friends, and for 5-10 minutes, the friends don't talk about him even once. He feels hurt, he feels insulted, he feels as if they have not bothered about him or something of that sort, right? It loves people to admire it. And deep down, there is a feeling that people should bow down to me. Right? It loves it when people say sorry to it. And it loves to disguise its egoism. It loves to disguise its self-love by giving donations everywhere, to appear modest everywhere, appear as if it is loving everywhere. But a little bit of criticism and it can be stung easily. So if we, observe these few symptoms within ourselves, we know where our pramad lies, we know where our self-love lies. And just by looking at it over a long period of time, we can be free of it. Many times it is very clever. It disguises its rudeness by kindness. And it loves to show off its kindness. One of the beautiful, what do you call, of self-love is loves to show off. The showing off we call as vanity. It loves to show off, the peacock mentality which Mr. Tavariaji used to talk about. But these people are always restless inside. So people in pramad are always restless inside. Why are they restless? Because they always feel that the outer covering may fall at any time. Somebody would see them without the outer covering. They are easily provoked, and if you insult them, they can hold on to that insult, even take revenge after a few years on that. They just hold on to that insult. You come to meet them, they'll remember you insulted them 20 years ago, right? So they hold on to it. But when you talk about their merits, you talk about the good deeds they've done, they feel so happy, they feel so satisfied. This feeling of worthiness, of how worthy, what a good boy am I, this feeling of worthiness. And that is pramad. It is laziness in the intellect, in the emotional center. These people, they know everything. They are not open to anyone else's suggestions. There is never a window through which you can touch them. And they are so self-intoxicated either by their knowledge or by their craft or by their, what do you call, some power they have. They are so self-intoxicated by that, that becomes a big obstacle on the path. We can say in a way it is the biggest obstacle on the path. And if they have risen above the obstacles momentarily and got a glimpse of that consciousness, and then they use that consciousness to fulfill their own self-love, all the desires of their self-love, then it becomes a kind of something which is irreparable. Such people can never go ahead. They are stop over there, and they have to come back in their journey to ABC and then start again. And that is why Gurdjieff calls them as irreparable machines. We'll stop over here. We'll take the other antrais next week. If there are any questions, I'll take the questions. Thank you.
So you mentioned, let me turn on my video, hold on.
Who's on?
Hi, how are you doing today? Hello? Hello?
Who's talking?
Hello?
Can you please share your name?
Can you please share your name, please?
Love.
Love M. Mr. Love M.
Love.
Rajen bhai, his name is Love.
Oh, Love. Yeah, right. Okay. Love and Kush. Right.
So I have a question about the last thing that you mentioned, which was ego.
Self-intoxication.
Self-intoxication. And when you were describing the characteristics of someone that is self-intoxicated, I was cross-analyzing if I do any of that or if I have any of those characteristics. Who is someone that is parallel of this self-intoxication? What is the parallel of that? What is the polar opposite of that?
A person who has dissolved the self and only love remains. There's self and love, right? So as you dissolve the self, what remains is love. That is the parallel. Right? My approach is always through consciousness, not to approach it through love. Right? Let love come in through the back door as a byproduct of consciousness. So we make an effort towards consciousness, That is on dissolving the ego and what love should remain as a byproduct. It was already there, but it was self-love. Now there is no self and love remains.
Yes.
That would be right.
And when you say consciousness, are you saying elevating your consciousness?
Yes, elevating the consciousness by taking the attention deeper and deeper inside towards the inner Ishvara.
Okay. Another question that I have is, I think you mentioned this in the earlier, was that when someone is conscious, more conscious, and when we come across someone that is not as conscious, we can say, yes, I accept this person's state of consciousness. But what do we do when that person who is just a little bit less conscious, we're not going to say that that person is bad, good, or this or that or whatever, because then that is a judgment. What do we do when someone that is less conscious becomes upset if you do not match their level of consciousness?
First of all, why my teacher taught the 3-step rhythmic breathing. So
Yes.
I'll just give you the thing. Is that it doesn't take us out of normal life. So if you're breathing in that rhythm, right? So then you'll be able to match your consciousness with anyone.
Okay.
You get it? Now, just say, we just take one line of Gurdjieff. Man is a machine. Okay?
Yeah.
Right? Now, supposing you have become a little conscious, you have risen from your mechanicalness, you are no longer a machine, a complete machine.
Yep.
But what is the other person? What is the other person? A machine.
Okay.
And how can you expect a machine to change? How can you expect a machine to match your consciousness? A machine will only do what the gears tell it to do. And it will keep on repeating the same action. And unless that acceptance comes, then we have not really, risen to that state of consciousness. That acceptance of the other exactly as is. Whatever this machine is, this is this machine's quality. And the acceptance of that.
Yes.
If there's rejection of that, there is irritation, then somewhere we are still holding irritation inside. If there is anger, if you feel he is wasting your time, then there is absence of patience inside. And somewhere we have to work on ourselves. Right? We don't want others to match their consciousness with us. We want to match our consciousness with whoever is in front of us. And if they are a machine, we can allow ourselves to become a machine. Right? Of course, we will not fall into animalism.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All the best to you. All the best.
Thank you.
Anybody else wants to ask a question? Please unmute yourself.
No other question. On the net. We just check if there are any questions on YouTube. Otherwise, we'll wind up.
Can I add something?
Yeah, please.
Sir, when you mentioned that ego takes over the experience of truth, actually I got stuck there. Can you please explain a little bit more on this?
See, I have not got over my weakness of pramad, the last one we took, right? Now, till yesterday, I was intoxicated by my knowledge, right? Or I may be a very good musician. So till yesterday, I was intoxicated by my, what do you call, craftiness in music. Can you get what I'm trying to say? Now suddenly I have this experience of truth, but the pattern of ego is still lying within me. I have not worked on that pattern, self-love. So what will self-love do? I have experienced truth. Can you understand? Now the I cannot experience truth, but the I does experience truth, right? I give you it's not a very good example. The person is no longer with us, but he was a very famous guru. And once he was traveling to London with his disciples, and they had booked the whole first class of the plane. The whole first class was booked for him and his disciples. And he wanted to use the washroom. So he always had two sevikas. You know what are sevikas? Two lady disciples who take him into the washroom and help him out over there. So the air hostess said, but it's the rule in the plane, only one person can go in the washroom. You cannot take these two disciples of yours into the washroom. Right? So then there was a lot of tangle, but in the end, he got so wild on the air hostess. He says, I have experienced truth and you're just a nothing. Can you understand?
Yeah.
Now, maybe he had experienced truth. Maybe he had had that glimpse of rising above the obstacles. But the obstacles came back and captured the truth.
Yes.
Can you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Getting there. Thank you.
Sometimes, you know, I've traveled in so many ashrams all over India when I was teaching these exercises for nearly 20 years. But sometimes the anger, the irritation you see in the gurus is much, 100 times more than the common man. I mean, so you wonder, have they really worked upon these? They have experienced the truth. There's no doubt about that. When they speak with such beautiful clarity. But then this, you see that the antrais are still there and they have not come back to work on the antrai.
Sorry, I don't. Hello?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was clarified before, but how do we work on the antras? Is that what?
On these intermissions, these intervals, we are talking about these obstacles. We are talking on how to work with them. The minute they come in our awareness, they come in our understanding, we start working upon by observing them.
Okay, by observance.
Yeah, attention is light and the obstacle is darkness. Over observation over long time, light gets rid of darkness.
Attention is light and observation is?
No. Attention is observation. Observation is through attention. And the obstacle, the antray, is darkness.
What is this word, antaray?
That is what we have been doing in this sutra. The obstacles to soul cognition. The obstacles, the inner obstacles.
Okay.
Bodily disability, mental inertia, what we have been talking about.
Okay. Oh.
Right?
Yep.
So they are a form of darkness in the mind. As you could keep looking at them, observing them over a long period of time, the light gets rid of the darkness.
That's right.
You don't have to do anything. You have to just watch.
Yes, observe.
The patience to watch.
Yes.
Right.
I have one more question.
Yeah, please do.
Earlier, just before when I joined this, I was asking Mr. Brahma some questions, and the conversation was interrupted because he had to start this stream. with you all here. But as it so happened that the questions that I was asking him were were addressed by you in the very manner that I asked them. So does coincidence exist?
There's nothing like a coincidence in life. There is a law of synchronicity, right? And it is not that I am answering the questions. Your questions are being answered.
Yeah.
There is no person over there, right? If the thirst is right, then the water comes in front of you. Right? Otherwise, there was water everywhere and not a drop to drink.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. More questions? Yeah? Oh my. Yeah.
First question is there any relation of self-love and identification with the shadow planets of Rahu and Ketu? This is from Manas.
Since the question is there any relationship between self-love, identification, because self-love is the biggest form of identification, and the planets of Rahu and Ketu? There is definitely a relationship because Rahu is a very intelligent planet, because when the Lord Vishnu cut the head of the Asur, the head became Rahu and the body became Ketu. So we have to see in a horoscope where Rahu is placed. And Rahu is a shady intelligence that a powerful Rahu can make you a very good underworld don or a very good income tax lawyer or something, right? So definitely it has a relationship with self-love, right? And Ketu, a powerful Ketu can make you a workaholic, where you can get any work done. You can work all 24 hours. So they do have and you may be self-intoxicated by that. But they are shadowy planets and they have a relationship. But we have to see their placement in the horoscope also, where they are and what that place in the horoscope, that Rashi, that house is trying to tell us through Rahu and Ketu. Right? I can't give a long answer on this. It's not possible.
The second question is, which refining exercises will help us come out of this self-intoxication of pramad, the progressing self-intoxication, and B, help us be more understanding of other people who might be machines?
We won't take one refining exercise. Of course, the first exercise has a very deep effect on the emotional center. So it is directly connected with self-love. But all the exercises, they form a package, a total whole. And also the 3-step rhythmic breathing. Because if I'm in rhythmic, if my breath is rhythmic, my emotions won't get upset. And if my emotions won't get upset, I'll be able to observe clearly. There won't be any distraction in my observation. There won't be anything to distract my attention. So it is with the 3-step rhythmic breathing. Recently, I had given a talk on external considering. I'm going to repeat the talk in English in the youngsters camp. So I would request you to listen to that talk. What is external considering and what are the steps and practices towards external considering? Right? Okay, we'll stop over here, sir. You can close if Ketan wants to make one small announcement, sir.
There's one small announcement I want to make. We are having our the end of the year Christmas camp with Rajen Bhai. This will be happening from 22nd to 27th of December, and this will happen at his ashram, which is on the banks of River Narmada. Beautiful place. Tavariaji Sahib's ashram, a beautiful place on the banks of River Narmada. In case and the focus there will be how do we
use a lot of the things that we learn here, learn in our work, learn in our sadhana? How can we use it to work with the challenges that we face in our lives? How can we, a lot of practical applications of what we discuss. If any one of you is interested to join the camp, you can either reach out to Gaur sir, or you can reach out to me, and we can share more details about the registration process and any other information that you would like.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ketan. And we'll just end up with the usual Shanti Pat. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhino Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhave. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May peace and auspiciousness prevail everywhere. Thank you, dear Rajan Bhai, and thank you everyone for being with us.
Thank you, sir.